And we are starting in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Epstein Files Review, episode 28. As always, this is an 18 and up channel, so if you're under the age of 18, we're going to have to ask you to leave. And with that being said, we're going to jump right back in, right back down the rabbit hole, and we're going to start, as we traditionally do, with our last file, which was file 2700, which was this map here, this overview of the island. You can see the dock there, and let's jump right into it and see what we can get into today. Hope everybody's feeling well today. All right, so we've got a duplicate file right off the bat there. We're going to move right along. Hopefully we get some gems today. Always looking for the gems. Okay, so now we have a color map of the Caribbean here. Got it upside down. All right, Little St. James, Caribbean Sea. Let's see what some of these labels are. You got Rock Beach, Rock Point, North Point, the Dock, Home Beach, Stragglers Point. You see Divers Beach, Frenchman's Cap Point, South Rock Cove, Smuggler's Cove, Lost Beach, and I can't really see what this is in the corner here. Can't make that out. Something Rock, Signal Rock perhaps. All right, so you got the Caribbean Sea on this side, and you see, it looks like you got the Caribbean Sea on this side, and I saw the Atlantic Ocean was pointed out in one of the maps in the last episode. So the Atlantic Ocean is going to be somewhere around here. Moving forward. All right, so here we have the outside of these maintenance compounds again. You got a work truck here. Looks like one that you would just dump. Actually, you know what? That's a part of the building. Scratch what I just said. This is a little tractor there. Got a dumpster, and we're going to move along and see if we saw inside of that building or not. Okay, here's the front of it. I remember seeing that bucket, so we may have seen this one already, but we're going to move along. All right, so here's another angle of the side of that building. You got another big warehouse over there. All right, and we have a bush outside of that. You can kind of see a little of the water there. And as I always say, we're not going to spend too much time on any files that don't have any real pertinence to our investigation. Here's a close-up of that second picture that we saw on the side of the warehouse. Moving right along. All right, so you got some machinery here, the side of this warehouse. A very dark picture. This looks like it might be maybe a side door right here. But it's very dark, can't really make out anything here, but it's on the side of this warehouse here. We are 10% through today's episode. All right, here's a more well-lit view of the picture we just saw. Side of that warehouse with that equipment there. All right, so it was a door. Looks like it's got like, I don't know if this is a latch that would open it. Perhaps this is a handle. And then you got these doors. We saw those before in the other warehouse that we were looking at. Moving right along. So it looks like they're just taking pictures of the exterior of these warehouses. All right, so now we're getting a little bit of a look on the inside. Looks like somebody must have drove something in here that was a little bigger than this doorway. It's a little smashed in, but you got some Caterpillar equipment there. Moving right along. All right, so now you have more equipment that you would use for renovations. Kind of see the ceiling there. Nothing too crazy. And as always, like I said, I know I've said this a couple episodes as far as getting a revision of episode 3 with sound. That is coming. I'm going to try to get that out today. I know you're going to say, you said that already. I'm going to try to do it. You know, I just get so amped up about looking at the new files that I've had to build up the urge to go back and do that episode. It's all great, you know, evidence, and I'm sure it's gonna be a great time when I do it. It's just making sure I'm supplying new files while trying to double back and knock out file episode 3 and then get back to the new files. Because like you guys, I'm curious to see all of these files, so I just kind of want to move forward. But definitely, there was a lot of good gems in that episode, so I'm sure it's gonna be a good time. But not to get sidetracked. So we've got some more equipment here. This looks like a cement truck. Moving right along. All right, here's another look at the front of this equipment. We're just going to stroll through any of these files that don't have pertinent evidence of what we're looking for. Here's another piece of equipment, a big truck there with some floodlights on it. All right, so here's another side angle of this equipment. And another side angle of that equipment there. Pretty expensive equipment. And it seems like he owns his own equipment, or I don't know if the people he hired out were just storing the equipment in these sheds here, these warehouses. But I mean, the guy was a billionaire, so he could have bought his own equipment. We are 20% through today's episode. All right, here's a back angle of this caterpillar. All right, so we got another picture of these wires here. Now, as you can see, it looks like some stuff is missing. So they probably already started taking some stuff out because there was a lot more stuff here and there. So unless this is another room with, let me take a look at these labels because I remember the labels were very similar. Firewall router, so that may be the same one. And the wires are kind of hanging in the same position, so I'm going to assume that's the same one we saw earlier. We saw this picture with the tank. Moving right along, lots of duplicates, but like I said, they're going to hide those gems. So we saw this picture earlier with the door in between the hallway here and those pipes in the wall. All right, we saw this switchboard here. We are 25% through today's episode. I know we spent like a good 3 episodes on this. We saw all of this. We saw this machine here. So it's like there's that desk again, the electrical uh, outputs there. We're seeing a lot of the same files. There's that desk. There's a little refrigerator. So, oh, what did I just do? So, we reviewed all of these files. I don't know how a website URL ended up in our search bar. Nonetheless, we're going to move along. All right, so here's that machine that we saw earlier, that generator. How did we jump back into the old files? So just like we said in the comment section, there's no real order to it. There's that caterpillar machine. We spent 3 episodes in this particular compound, and we're back. There's the Tremont machines. So a lot of this, we're 30% through today's episode. I believe, like we were saying before, is to deter us. There's some electrical equipment and drums. I have to say something on each of these files, but we've seen these files before, so we're not going to spend a lot of time looking at these files. There's the drums. But once we made it out of this particular compound, somehow we've ended right back in it with duplicate photos. We've seen this with the barrels. But we're going to continue forward because we know there's some gems. Hopefully we just jump right back out of this. There's that long tube thing again in that computer room with the wires right there. And hopefully this is just the last of these files. There's that tank again that were left unposted. No smoking on the door. Can we get out of this compound? We keep ending up back in this compound. There's the tank again. There's the tank. Yeah, if you're going on a witch hunt, there's that door again. There's going to be a lot of trap doors, and this seems to be one of them. There's the stairs again, leading to that bottom door. We've seen all this, and we are 40% through today's episode. Okay, we're back outside. There is the front of that door that had the no smoking sign on the back. So hopefully we stay out of that particular compound. We've seen that one almost as much as we saw Jeffrey's New York house, in every room in that house and every chair, including the leopard chairs. So here's another door. He's got a brick on the door. It has no handle. So I don't know if this is a effective way to keep this door closed, seeing as anyone could come up, kick this brick out, and the door would have open access. Nonetheless, I'm just grateful we're back outside and we're back inside. All right, so this is that one file we saw with the oils, motor oils, and such. Like I always say, once we get through these files, hopefully we never have to see them again. I always say we never have to see them again, but here we are seeing them again. There's the motor oils, but hopefully it's the last of these files that didn't make it with the other one. There's that floodlight that we saw in the last episode. I'm assuming they use those to do construction work at night. There's those strange fruits and the ski-doos. Moving right along. All right, there's those fruits in the back of a John Deere there. You got a steamroller or a roller. Here's that caterpillar again. Moving right along. All right, here is that warehouse with the blue walls that we saw before, the random tools and stuff. All right, here is another angle, some wrenches on the wall of that same warehouse. We are 50% through today's episode. There's another view of that same photo there. You got your sprays and whatnot. Nothing of real significance, so we're moving right along. Okay, so here's the one. I believe this was the sign that had kids on the wall. It's got all these weird writings. We didn't see this before. So these are the gyms that we're talking about. So this says serious something. Can't really make out what this word is, but it says serious something. And we know on this side it says kids. I can't really make out what this says. Maybe we'll get another view of the other side of this cabinet here so we can make out what the rest of that word is. But we're just going to move forward. All right, so here is a side view of all three of these little doors. So this is the room that has the weird writing on it, and it should have kids on this wall. You can see the serious right there. I'm surprised that they didn't zoom in and get that full word on both of those cabinets. When we have all of these duplicated photos of miscellaneous random stuff like caterpillars and gas tanks, we should have received multiple pictures of whatever this was that was written here and on that wall and on those cabinets. So here's that one room here that had the wrenches on the wall and the one with the fan that we saw earlier that had the sprays. So that's just the angle that shows all rooms from that particular angle. Moving right along. All right, here's the front of the Caterpillar. And this roof is pretty much missing here. And this is the one where it looks like somebody drove through the door, ran into it. I'm just happy we're not seeing duplicate files, but I don't want to jinx it. Hopefully we don't go back to that. Okay, so here was that bathroom we saw. There was one that was kind of nasty, and this is the one. And then there was one that was a little cleaner that had like blue walls. I wonder if they're going to show that one in the next slide. Okay, it's another picture of the same bathroom. This looks like a maintenance bathroom. You know, it's very unkept. You got toilet paper all over the place. So I'm assuming this is probably an area of the island that Jeffrey Epstein spent very little, if any, time in. Here's the side of this bathroom wall. Looks like there's a piece missing there. Moving right along. All right, so here's a shower. We saw that. Maybe he used this. Not sure, but or maybe this was for maintenance guys to clean themselves off because there's nothing too alluring on this side of the island. It's just warehouses and random equipment. So here's another side of that wall of the shower. Moving right along. Here's the blue one that was, well, I said it was a little cleaner, but I guess it's just a little less messy. I don't know what this is on the floor there. And we are 60% through today's episode. All right, here's another look at the bathroom with the blue walls. Maybe it just looks cleaner because the tile's glossy. Could be visual deception. All right. So here is the shower. Here's the bathroom. That's just a view from the outside. Moving right along. There's a view again. That looks pretty messy, but you can see there's a shower there and a bathroom. All right, so here's the side view that we saw before with the two coolers. You can see the water on that side. All right, another close up. You got like this wheelbarrow thing over here. Emergency listings. I don't know what that was for. Maybe that's for like chemical spills or something. I'm going to try to spend as little time on files that have no relevance. So here's that picture we saw before with the cement mixer and the equipment. All typical stuff you would use for a construction project. There's another view of the equipment. So we're not going to spend too much time analyzing that file. It's another view of the caterpillars. Big one, little one. But clearly shows he had tons of space for all this equipment for his renovations. Here's another photo of that warehouse with the doors dented in. Somebody clearly ran into that. All right, so we saw this one with the life vests and the random batteries and stuff like that that he had. Some extra chairs. These are all duplicates. We are 70% through today's episode, or this episode. All right, here's those vests again. And you've got some chairs there. We got some photos on the floor here. This looks like beach views. There's someone there. It's not redacted, but what we've noticed is they don't redact the pictures when they're at a distance because they assume that you can't see what's in it, but you can clearly see there's a young woman right there. So sometimes we get a glimpse at a redacted picture when it's from a distance utilizing our zoom. So here's some bags over here. This is just the side view of that room. This is that picture we saw before where it looked like it was a galaxy and a spaceship. This looks like space or the atmosphere. This might be Earth. Not sure, but we really didn't. Why didn't they put a close-up picture of that painting in there so we could take a look at that? All right, so we've got a combination key code door here. I'm assuming they're going to probably break this open if they don't have the code. And we'll see what's in here. Maybe it's something important. All right, so you've got these, I almost want to say that they're vaults, but it looks like it just has a handle. Very blurry picture, but it looks like another workstation. Moving right along. All right, here's a less blurry, but still blurry picture of the same image, just from slightly to the right. And we are 75% through today's episode. Man, what happened to the photographer's pictures? I mean, his resolution. You're a professional photographer taking photos for an FBI Department of Justice investigation, and this is the picture you take. Anyway, so you got random equipment there. We can't really make it out, but it just looks like random stuff that you would use for maintenance. It's a little blurry, so hopefully we get away from these blurry pictures pretty soon. There we go. We got a little more refined definition here. So yeah, it's just random cables and things like that. This looks like it has some sliding drawers for probably bolts and tools and stuff like that. Nothing too crazy in there. Just looks like a work cabinet. Moving right along. All right, so this is another view of the same picture. Some of these cabinets are open here, but it appears to be all maintenance stuff. All right, we got some rope. We saw this picture before because this rope kind of stood out. Looking from the back of this warehouse, this is the one that had the picture of Mona Lisa there above the door, and you just got random work equipment. So these are all duplicates. Nothing to analyze there. All right, so here is this keypad door. It looks like it may have been barged open. It looks like it's been breached there. So we'll see what's behind there. But I'm assuming any door that has a key code or number pad would have something important in it. All right, so we got some boxes. Apparently not, unless this is the outside of the door because you can see the door lock right there. Actually, no, we're still on the outside of this door, but we saw all of this before, just these stacks of boxes. Why they didn't open them, I don't know, but we're going to move forward. All right, here's another view of this door. Random stuff around the outside of the door. Both of these doors have lock pads, so we saw a front view of these. All right, so I don't know if, no, that door's right here. So this is outside. Got your little generators, grip, what does that say, grip right? Just random work equipment, cables and stuff like that. Nothing too serious there. All right, so looks like we are outside. Potentially, there's a door that we were just looking at. All right, this looks like one of those mobile massage tables. We know he likes to get massages everywhere he goes from underage women. That's not an assumption. People have testified to that. That's what he was doing. All right, some workout equipment. He always has to have that on hand. There's some pipes here. This looks like just like another storage room. Clearly, that I don't think that would be enough space to work out. You'd have to climb over a bunch of this stuff. All right, here's a ski-doo in the background. You got some maintenance equipment here. All right, there's the ski-doo, some day sofas. I don't know if this is a refrigerator of some kind. There's something in there. And just random equipment. Moving right along. All right, so here is Ranger Polaris's electric. All right, here's another view of those Polarises. And we are 90% through today's episode. There's the front of this door again with a bucket in front of it. All right, so here's that little office we saw before. There's a chair, some file cabinet, just random stuff. There's that calendar that we saw. These are duplicate files. We saw these. So even though this stuff is thrown together, we're going to see every single file. There's the desk, chair, got his the little refrigerator there, random equipment, nothing too crazy to see here. All right, here's another door. I believe that was a duplicate as well. We saw that file. And here's this electrical. This is got a bunch of tanks there, so maintenance equipment. Lots and lots of maintenance equipment. Here's a wide view. Like I said, we've seen these files, so there's no reason to elaborate on them. But we do need to look at every file for transparency. Here's another view of that tank, and there's those sodium hypochlorite drums that we saw before, where we had that discussion in the comment section about this potentially being for water purification. All right, here's the outside of this door with rocks on it now. All right, so here are those. I thought it was the same door. So there was a bucket in front of one, and there's rocks in front of the other. This looks like one of those ladders that goes to the pools. Maybe it's an extra. All right, so we got a little bungalow here. I'm pretty sure we saw some pictures in front of this. There was that one picture of the young girl and the guy on the golf cart looking through the binoculars as she walked away. Very weird. That might have been on this side here. But it's looking promising. We've got one file left in this episode, and it looks like we're moving away from the warehouses with all that equipment that we had to stare at for the last 3 episodes. And as always, I want to thank you guys really for basically drudging through those mundane files, of just looking at equipment. I know sometimes in the comment section, people are like, oh, we're looking at, oil cans. But yeah, I promise transparency and that we would look through every file. That means the ones that have information that we can learn and the ones that are just mundane. We have to look through all the files. And, an investigation isn't always going to be entertaining. We're here to find out what happened. So here's another picture of that bungalow from the back, so it looks like we're going away from the warehouse. But we'll be able to delve more into that in the next episode for the next 100 files. But like I said, we're looking for the gems, and there's been episodes where you'll have 98 files that there's no really meat on the bones, but you'll see two that makes you say, "What is that?" And there's so many examples of it. That file of what looked to be a baby or something in the sink, and you've got women in wedding dresses hanging from ceilings. So you never know what you're going to see in these files. But there's one thing I could promise you. Well, two things. There's something here, obviously, or there would have never been an investigation. There never would have been as much covering up as as we've been seeing. And number two, we will be going through all of the files. So stick with me. As always, if you haven't subscribed, now is the time to do that. I noticed out of our whole base, about 75% are viewing daily and 25% are subscribers. Kudos to that 25%. The other 75%, if you've been looking at these files with me every day, looking at every episode, and you haven't pressed the subscription button yet, you need to do that. And I've made it pretty easy for you. At the end of the video, you're going to see to the right the logo of the channel. Just click it and press the subscription button and hit your notifications because, like I said, if you haven't noticed, there have been episodes coming out at random times of the day, right? And you may get more episodes than one in a day. The only way you're going to know about it is if you have your notifications on and if you're subscribed. Otherwise, you may log on, and notice you're 5 episodes behind, and there's a lot of files. We've already gone through 2,800 of them. So if you don't subscribe, you're gonna have a lot of catching up to do. So I want everybody to stay with us, and as you guys continue to do, leaving comments in the comment section, pointing out all of the little nuances and things that haven't been spoken on verbally by me in the episodes. It allows us all to be on the same page. And when I see these comments, I respond, and I also go back and look at and verify all the things that you guys point out. So I love the fact that there are people that are just as outraged as I am and want to know what really happened. So that's why we're here. And as always, make sure you spread the word on your social media and repost, post it on your TikTok, your Instagram, your Facebooks, and all of those things. So people who wish to know what happened in these files that don't even know a channel like this exists can join us on our investigation. But we're almost at 30 minutes. I've held you guys long enough. So with that being said, I will see you guys in the next episode where we will be reviewing and analyzing files 2800 through 2900. Till then, you guys take care.